Welcome along to the Met Office Deep Dive. There's only one more of these before we start meteorological spring, but snowmantics, fear not. There is some snow to talk about in this week's Deep Dive. And yes, as usual, it's giving us meteorologists a few headaches. Then things are set to turn a bit milder as we head into the weekend. We'll go through it all in this week's Met Office Deep Dive. If you enjoy watching these, then do hit the thumbs up button. That will give us license to do more and more of them and create more content on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done already, you really want to hit subscribe because then you'll never miss a deep dive or a 10-day trend or indeed any of our forecasts. But yes, welcome along to this week's Met Office Deep Dive. My name's Alex Deakin. I'm a meteorologist and weather presenter here at the Met Office. We do these every Tuesday. So I say, strap yourself in for the next 20-25 minutes or so as we delve into the nuances of whether it's going to snow or whether it's not going to snow. As I mentioned, it is giving us a few headaches, but it's really Wednesday evening that we're focusing in on for the potential for some snow, particularly over parts of Wales and the Midlands. More on that in a second. First of all, let's take a look at the bigger picture because we've seen a subtle shift over recent days. Now, for most of this winter, we've had a south-shifted jet, and until recently, it's been bringing weather systems across Iberia, and you can see one there just moving into Italy, bringing some snow for the Winter Olympics. But just over recent days, the jet stream, as you can see there by that stream of cirrus cloud on the satellite image, it has started to shift a bit further north and become a little bit more wavy, a bit more amplitude to it. So yes, the storm systems, at least for the time, have stopped barreling in across Spain and Portugal, but not necessarily further north. The jet stream has only just shifted a little further north, so it's still generating swirls, still generating areas of low pressure, and still affecting France in particular. And we will continue to see areas of low pressure, but that subtle shift in the jet stream a little further north has started at least to move things around because we've also lost the big block that was sitting over Scandinavia, a big area of high pressure here. Still, the pressure is relatively high, but it's not as stubborn, so we're seeing things moving through a little bit more readily. But we have started to see that subtle shift. Let's take a look at where the jet stream is now, and you can see, as I said, it is now a bit more wavy out in the Atlantic. We're still generating areas of low pressure, still coming our way, but it's not as south shifted and it is being allowed to progress. Still high pressure here, but it's not as strong. The block isn't quite so strong, so low pressure systems are moving through. And that's what we're going to see over the next day or so. This area of low pressure is kind of the dominant feature sitting out to the west of the Republic of Ireland, but it's actually this little fella. That's what we need to keep a very close eye on as we go over the next 24 hours or so. Not even really a full area of low pressure at this stage, but it's in this little dip, this little trough in the jet stream, and that is what's helping to spin this up. And that is crucial to the weather that we see over the next 24 to 36 hours. Now, ahead of it, this little ripple, we've got a little triple point low, bringing some wet weather across the south tonight. But keep your eyes on that as we go through into Wednesday morning. It intensifies a little bit, still not a full circulation in there, and then it drifts its way with the help of this jet stream. Pop, there we go. Now we've got a proper kind of circulation in there as we go through Wednesday afternoon and into the evening time. And it's drifting up into northern parts of France. At least it is, according to the Met Office model. Not all the models are in complete agreement, and that is one of the main reasons why it's giving us so many headaches. But yeah, if we follow this, it tracks its way, look, across the Cherbourg Peninsula. Let's zoom in a little bit into northern France, becoming a little bit detached from the jet stream, so not intensifying as much anymore, but quite a circulation there heading into northern France. Now, of course, here across the UK, we've got cold air. Cold air has been in place, helped generated by an easterly or southeasterly wind, and yeah, that low, bringing in the moisture from the North Sea, going to hit the colder air. That is going to bring rain for most places, but with the potential as it hits the colder air for some snowfall. So the position of this low and the exact intensity of this low is crucial. Now we're only talking 36 hours away, but there is quite a bit of discrepancy about where this low pressure is going to sit. Let's take off the jet stream, let's take off the temperature. So this is the Met Office model. You can see this here, 11 o'clock, going across the north coast of France there. But if we look at the European model, ECMWF model, we can see that, once it's loaded, if we look at the control from ECMWF, fast forward to the same time, what have we got there? Yeah, this is where the low is here. Now it looks, broadly speaking, pretty similar, doesn't it? But it's on the other side of the channel. It is shifted a little bit further north, but snowfall is so finely balanced that that shift makes a huge difference as to where the rain is, where the intensity is, all driven by this parent low as well. So that difference makes a big difference about where we potentially see some snow. And snow is, as I say, always on a bit of a knife edge. A temperature change of a degree or so makes a huge difference all the way up through the atmosphere. Most rain starts off as snow, of course, but it melts on the way down. So you've got to get accurate temperature profile of the atmosphere all the way up to where it is raining. The wind speed will make a difference because that mixes the air, mixes the warmer air at lower levels. How high up you are makes a big difference as well. But crucially also the intensity and how long the wet weather lasts makes a big difference as to whether you see rain or snow when it's on the cusp like this. Because when it's snowing and it's melting on the way down, turning to rain, that is taking energy out of the atmosphere. So the longer it does that, the more energy that gets taken out of the atmosphere. And so the atmosphere itself, that layer of the atmosphere, then cools down. So the snow can then get further down. And if that lasts longer, then you can get the snow coming down to further lower and lower levels. And then the intensity as well, how much precipitation is falling. If you've got more snow initially falling, turning to rain as it's melting again, you're taking more and more energy out in the atmosphere. So that part of the atmosphere then cools, which means the snow can get down to lower levels. So really subtle differences in the intensity, how long the precipitation lasts makes a big difference as to where we see the snowfall. Now, the big question is, which one of those models is going to be right? It's probably going to be somewhere in between the two. But what we do here at the Met Office is analyse what's doing best at the moment. And what the chief meteorologist, Steve Willington, was looking at this morning was the water vapour imagery. And I can show you that here. Now, this is basically looking down from above at the top level of the atmosphere and showing the water vapor in different colors, basically looking at one wavelength, showing the water vapor where the darker, the blues, that's drier air, and the greens and the whites, that's where there is more moisture, more water. Now, it's not necessarily ideal for looking at clouds, it's just telling us what the atmosphere is doing, where there's drier air and where there's more moist air, and that helps us to figure out what's going on and where the air is rising, where the air is falling. You can see in here these darker slots. They're the little troughs that we've got out in the Atlantic where this low pressure system is forming and intensifying. And if we go back to that image, out here, this is where the Met Office model has that little dip. And you can actually see some lightning strikes, those little crosses on there. That's actually lightning strikes, which are adding to the complication. It means there's thunderstorms within that system already, and thunderstorms, as I say, complicate the situation as well. So that's what the Met Office model thinks the water vapor imagery is doing at 11 o'clock this morning, actually 11Z, so 12 o'clock at noon today. But if we fast forward and show you, this is what was actually observed at that same time. Now, broadly speaking, it looks pretty close, doesn't it? But if I show you again, there are subtle changes. If we look at what the model was doing compared to what was actually observed, if this plays, that's what's observed. The Met Office model has everything just a little bit further south compared to what was actually observed. There's that comparison again. So the Met Office model is a little bit too far south compared to reality. And that's one of the best ways for looking at how much you can trust a weather forecast. What is going on now? Is it a good fit? Does the model represent what's actually happening? And you can see there that our model is a little bit further south, which means we have a bit more trust in perhaps the European model. So we're backing a bit more to what the European model is going for. And we can compare the Met Office model what I showed you earlier in a slightly different way. So I showed you the Met Office model, then I showed you the European model with that low a bit further north. You compare and contrast with a direct chart. So this is basically subtracting one pressure from the other. So this is taking the Met Office model and subtracting the European model from it. And it basically highlights, you can see the UK in there, basically highlights where there's the biggest difference. This is looking at the pressure field at the surface. So the brighter colours, the reds and the oranges, or the pinky purples, that's where you've got the biggest differences between the Met Office model and the European model. You can see the biggest differences are close to those two areas of low pressure that are controlling things, in particular this one through the channel. That is the one that's bringing the moisture, hitting the colder air and bringing the snow. The European model has it further north. This is at 6 o'clock Zulu tomorrow evening. And if we go forward to midnight, well, now you can actually see, hopefully you can just see the line there. That's the isobar where the circulation is according to the Met Office model. The dotted line, that's the European model. And the differences there, those oranges highlighted quite significant change. It doesn't look huge. And again, if it wasn't for the snow, it wouldn't be such a big issue. But because we are on such a fine line with where we're going to see snow, that is quite a big difference at this stage. Only, what, 42 hours ahead. So that is what we're looking at. That's why there's a difference. That is why it is giving us a bit of a headache. The model's not really in much agreement, and that's because of that developing and where we're seeing the jet at the moment from that view. And another way to look at it, that's the pressure field at the surface, but now we're comparing the jet and the position of the jet here. Again, taking one away from the other. Effectively, these brighter patches are where there's the biggest difference, and you can see in that crucial area where that low is developing, there's the UK, where that low is developing as it approaches the UK, there are quite big differences there. I think yeah, we can zoom in a bit more. So there's the UK. It's in that crucial breeding ground where we've got the biggest differences between the jet fields, effectively high up in the atmosphere. So, based on what we've observed, and basically we know there's the difference, more tending towards closer to the European model than what the Met Office model is suggesting. So, what does that mean for our weather? Well, it means, of course, we're looking at wet weather coming in as we go through the next. I'll take the cloud off on this because it's easier then to see the snow. So we've got basically a fine day out there today. There's been a few showers coming into the east, but here comes the first pulse of rain. That could have a bit of snow mixed in as it comes over the moors and the hills of South Wales. That scoots away, that first kind of triple point. And then we're looking at another pulse of wet weather as we go into tomorrow. And that's where we've got. This is at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon as we start to see the wet weather hitting the colder air across the Midlands and Wales. I must stress, it's most likely this is going to be up over the hills. Mostly it's going to be a hill snow event, but you could easily see some, and obviously driving through it tomorrow evening across the Midlands, parts of Wales, won't be very pleasant. So that then continues, and it's in this zone where we are most concerned about that snowfall coming in over the Midlands and parts of Wales. In the south, it is mostly rain that we're going to be seeing, but of course heavy rain could also cause some issues because it has been so wet recently. But this is the most likely scenario, with the zone over the Midlands parts of Wales seeing some snow. Settling really only likely over hills, but of course it could come down to lower levels for a time. As I said, it's all on the cusp. If we look at the snow from the Met Office global model, and where we're expecting to see some, you can see that actually it does generate some. It's not in that one, is it? It is on that one. Zoomed out. Let's zoom in a little bit and show snowfall accumulations. Notice quite a bit coming in across parts of France, but this is the Met Office model. That does generate some snow across the southeast, and that is because the low is further south in the Met Office model space. But we're not going with that. We don't really think that's likely. I say because of those differences, it is more likely to be further north, which is why the snow is more likely in this zone. Take the cloud off again as it comes in. Into this zone here, and that's why we've got that Met Office warning in place for the snow. That's
where we've got the yellow warning in place, where we could, as I say, you could see some falling at lower levels, but mostly any settling is going to be over the hills and the higher grounds, parts of South Wales, but the hills of Mid and North Wales could also see some. But it's on the cusp. Parts of the Midlands could also see some. Perhaps as it clears away, we may see some over the high ground across the southeast, but mostly at that stage it's likely to be rain. And this yellow warning is for the rain across the south. And again, it all depends on where that low is, the intensity, but because it's been so wet, pulses of heavy rain in this zone have the potential to cause some further disruption. So that yellow warning in place from tomorrow morning for the rain, and then that snow warning across Wales and the Midlands in place from 4 o'clock on Wednesday into Thursday morning. Then it all kind of clears away and potentially could turn a bit icy as we go through Wednesday night and into Thursday. But just some insight there into, well, how tricky forecasting snow is, but particularly when the models aren't in agreement, and particularly when things are coming in and just on the cusp there with that moisture coming in from the south, hitting the colder air that's in place. But it's fine margins. Let's show you the freezing levels for one as we go through tomorrow evening. Now this, remember, is based on the Met Office raw model. So this has the low a bit further south than we think it will be, and that generates the freezing levels right down to the surface over the Midlands here and into parts of Wales. And that would allow the snow to get down to quite low levels. Notice though the winds are quite brisk. Now that's going to be a factor. It could mean the snow is blowing where we do see it, but it also means the air gets mixed up at the lower levels quite a bit as well. So that means the snow doesn't come further down because you get that mixing of the air at lower levels, which keeps the air relatively mild down close to the surface. You have light winds, then the snow can get down to get down below what the freezing levels are. But in this image we've got here, the freezing levels are right down to 0, but this is from the raw Met Office model with the low further south. So it's more likely that the low is going to be further north, so those freezing levels would be a little bit further north as well. So we're unlikely to see huge amounts of snow building up at low levels, but it could. There is that potential for it to do that. So that's interesting to see what happens, which model is more correct. But that warning in place for snow across Wales and the Midlands. Let's say if you're interested, if you're in that area, you should go and read more about the warning on the Met Office website and Met Office app. What happens after that? Well, let's take a look at the sequence as we go through into Thursday. Then we can see that we've got a legacy. And well, let's play through Wednesday night. So Wednesday night, that circulation turns round. The intensity leaves it. It's all it's not being driven by the jet stream anymore. The jet stream's kind of disconnected from it, so it's not as intense, but it's still bringing some wet weather, some outbreaks of rain. It's likely across eastern areas on Thursday. Many other parts of the UK, though, looking dry and bright on Thursday. Could be a bit icy first thing. And then on Friday, we've got another weather system coming in. But this is different to what we've seen over recent weeks. It's in a different position, and that is because the jet stream now has kind of gone back to a more classic winter position, coming more in across the UK. It's away from Iberia. By the time we get to Friday, look at that. It's further north. It's still got a bit of waggle to it, still got a bit of amplitude. It's bringing in these areas of low pressure and these weather fronts in a more kind of typical way. Quite strong winds on it. The isobars fairly close together, and that's a wet and windy spell will sweep through during Friday, but it will sweep through rather than grinding to a halt. The high pressure further north has been shifted, so it's allowing the low pressure systems to head their way into Scandinavia rather than being blocked and just sitting and dying over the UK. Now the jet stream is making more progress, and here comes another weather system then coming in as we go into the weekend. But again, now look at where the jet stream is. It's right the way up here. So again, much more typical position, but now we are on the warm side of the jet stream. Breaking news, haven't had that for a while, and that means much warmer air is going to chug in across the UK. So we're in much milder conditions by the time we get to the weekend. So temperatures the next few days close to or below average by day, only 5s and 6s for most places. By the time we get to the weekend, we've got this warm sector The jet stream is further north, the low pressures are going further north, and we've got milder air coming in. It's still going to be mostly cloudy. There will still be more rain to come as these weather fronts come in, but much milder air is on the way as we go through into the weekend. Now, let's play that through even further, because one thing we need to keep our eye on as we head into Sunday in particular is the position of this weather front, because it's likely to develop a bit of a wiggle on it, a bit of a wave on it, and it's become now aligned with the flow, as we say, because it's lined up with the way that the isobars are, and it's also in line with the jet stream. So the jet stream of the wind's high in the atmosphere, but also, in fact, we can take those off, can't we? And put the surface winds on. The surface winds in line with the isobars. They're backed a little bit because of the friction of the Earth. But basically, the way that weather front is now dangling, it's in line with the isobar, so it's in line with the way that the flow is coming. That can cause a problem, because it can mean that the rain, you get a kind of like a line of rain that sticks around in one particular zone. I can show you that in another way now by looking at the temperature profile. This is what's going to happen over the weekend, and what we call a warm conveyor potentially setting up. First weather front comes through and leaves this kind of legacy of warm air in this kind of line down across the Atlantic. There's the UK. And then that secondary one comes in, and they kind of join forces. So this is first thing on Saturday. Then if we play through into what it looks like midday on Saturday, they've kind of merged together. They've got a little bit closer. And then by the time we get to midnight Saturday into Sunday, then they've really joined forces and generated this warm conveyor belt. So that's the warmer air, cooler air trapped into behind this low, bringing some showers to the north. But this warm conveyor belts, not just bringing warmer air, but also bringing moisture. Look at where it's coming from. You're tracking all that moisture in from down into the subtropics. So it's bringing warm air, but it's bringing moist air. And where that sits, particularly if it's engaging with hills, it generates a lot of rainfall. And that's the big question mark, where that is going to sit. We're likely to see a warm conveyor belt setting up, but the exact position of it will depend on various factors. We're, 5 days away now? But it needs watching, because those warm conveyor belts can bring persistent and heavy rain, particularly over hills, North Wales, Cumbria, southwest Scotland. Now, the good news is that those kind of areas haven't seen huge amounts of rain recently. It's been other parts of the UK because we've been stuck in that other weather pattern. But that just needs watching as we head into the weekend, because it could generate a fair bit of rain as it sinks south and then kind of grinds to a halt as we go through Saturday, and more particularly into Sunday. So you can see it kind of setting up there. That's where the Met Office model has it at the moment. So that would be southwest Scotland and Cumbria as well. But it could be, I say, a little bit further south. It could be a little bit further north. It's just something we need to keep an eye on. But with that mild air in place, temperatures are really going to jump up as we go into the weekend. We will see these values really increasing as we go through the next few days. Easily up to 12, 13 degrees Celsius, and potentially even a little bit higher. With that warm air in place, we could see these numbers jumping up even further than that. What do I want to show? It's not that one, is it? Oh, it is that one. It's that one, and then that one. Hopefully we'll be able to show you the temperature profiles as they rise over the next couple of days. So this is near Norwich. This is when we run the ensemble, and it's every one of the ensembles is a little green line, and you can see the temperatures here. This is close to Norwich. Next few days, 5, 6 degrees peaking at, and then look at that jump up. 14, maybe 15 degrees. Perhaps if we get some sunshine with that air in place, we could get to 16 degrees Celsius. But it's not just here. Pretty much everywhere, wherever I take this dot around the UK, you can see those temperatures rising. Obviously not getting as high in Scotland, but they are still rising quite significantly. Northern Ireland, again here, look at those values. The top values potentially getting to 11 or 12 degrees Celsius. It depends. This time of year, if you get a bit of sun, makes a big difference, because there's a bit of welly in the sun now, just starting to get it. Did you feel the apricity at the weekend on Saturday when many of us had a sunny day? The apricity, of course, the feeling of warmth on a cold winter's day when the sun is out. But you can see wherever I go here, temperatures on the rise. So there's a definite trend. Yeah, it gets a bit wishy-washy as we head into next week. A few of the models suggesting it might get a bit colder again, but not many of them. Most of them certainly taking us into milder air as we head into the weekend, probably likely to last as we go into next week. But the weather does need watching as we head into next week, with developments over into North America, perhaps impacting the weather systems that we could see through particularly the middle part of next week. But I do not want to steal Annie's thunder. She will no doubt be talking about that in tomorrow's Met Office 10-day trend. You don't want to miss that, which is another reason to hit subscribe, and then you'll never miss any of our weather forecasts. But that's pretty much it for this week's Met Office Deep Dive. Thank you so much for joining me. Share the love, let other people know that we do this every week. And as I say, if you haven't hit subscribe yet, then please do so and hit that thumbs up button. Love to read your comments. Also, if you've got any questions, any queries, we try and answer as many as we can, either in another deep dive, or if you don't watch us on Friday, you want to be doing that, the Weather Studio Live. We often answer people's questions from the deep dive in the Weather Studio Live. That's at Friday at 12:15. Also on YouTube, yet another reason to hit subscribe. But that's all from me for now. I'll see you again soon.